CNN has learned the White House has fired multiple administration officials after the president met with a well-known far-right activist.
That's right. That activist is Laura Loomer, who you see there in red. She was seen there at the White House yesterday greeting Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Very much so there. CNN's Elena Treen outside the White House for us. Elena, your sources say Loomer urged Trump to terminate these employees. Can you tell us who they are, why they were let go?
Yes, the mainstream media is freaking out after Laura Loomer visited the White House the other day. When you take a look at this, several members of President Trump in both the National Security Council have been fired on Thursday per a U.S. official and a second source familiar with the issue. Extremely concerning. Laura Loomer sent a tweet out like there are still people leaking information on what is going on inside the White House. I don't know if you've seen it.
What are you learning?
Well, as you said, Wolf, the White House has fired at least 3 members of the National Security Council, all staff of National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. And it does come after that Oval Office meeting yesterday between President Trump and Laura Loomer, as you mentioned, a far-right activist. She's someone who has once claimed that 9/11 was an inside job. I'd note that they've had a close relationship in the past, but there's many people who are also very close to the president who have, in the past, urged him to distance himself from her. But look, Loomer, we are told, went into that Oval Office with a list for the president, essentially arguing that many different members of the National Security Council were not loyal to the president. I was told that these 3 different firings were a direct result of what Loomer had told the president, what she had divulged to him during that meeting. The 3 officials who we know who are fired, but again, this is at least 3, include Brian Walsh. He is a director for intelligence. He's also a top staffer, or was a top staffer for now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but for when he was a senator. Also, Thomas Boudry, a senior director for legislative affairs, who previously worked in Waltz's congressional office. And then also David Feith, the senior director overseeing technology and national security. Now, of course, what we have to note as well, that this all comes after there's been a lot of scrutiny of National Security Advisor Michael Waltz following his role in creating that signal chain, the story that really blew up last week. We know that behind the scenes there's been a lot of frustration, including from President Donald Trump himself, with Waltz and some of the handling of that. So there could be more firings. We know that there's been some tension as well with Waltz's deputy, Alex Wong. We are told as of now he is not among, or we believe he is not among those who were fired. But more of this could definitely come following that meeting yesterday.
Yes, when you take a look at this, Laura sent this out. If you work with the spies who lied for years, or while knowing what they did while on CIA payroll during the 2020 election to run cover for Hunter, you have no business being at the NCS. I'm committed to protecting Trump and his administration from bad actors. That is Laura Loomer sending this out. Extremely important.
To new depths with the purging of career officials inside U.S. attorneys' offices across the country. The New York Times reports that 2 long-term prosecutors were fired last week with 0 warning or heads up, and with only one explanation given. They were being fired on behalf of Donald Trump personally. According to the New York Times, quote, one of the prosecutors, Adam Schleifer, was sitting at his computer on Friday morning in Los Angeles working on a case against the founder of Fatburger. While he was writing, he received an email from a White House official saying that he had been terminated. No reason was cited. Shocked and confused by the message, Mr. Schleifer asked supervisors if the email was some kind of hoax. He quickly discovered that his work phone had been reset and he could no longer use office devices. The New York Times reports this, quote, exactly 1 hour before he received the termination email. The far-right influencer, Laura Loomer, posted on social media about Mr. Schleifer, calling him, quote, a Biden holdover.
Anyway, but on this, it is important to note that Laura Loomer is driving this. She is a far-right activist. She is someone who said that if Vice President Harris won the White House during the election, that it would smell like curry. Those were comments that were denounced by Republican allies of the president, including Vance at the time, said he disagreed with it. And so she is the one who's really driving this, and it speaks to the level of influence.
And let's talk about the impact on national security, who they are, and why this matters so much for how the national security of the United States of America is run and who's doing it.
Well, what's fascinating about this is that the three staffers that have been fired here are outside of Washington Beltway national security circles. These are pretty anonymous people. They are foreign policy minds that have serious resumes, that have worked serious jobs on Capitol Hill, in the State Department, in think tanks. You know, these are people that are well known in national security circles because they are longtime practitioners of foreign policy, experienced in making that kind of policy. These are the people that are sort of engaged in the nitty-gritty of actually designing national security policy for the president. But they're not big public figures. You know, they're people like Brian Walsh, who was who ran intelligence programs for the White House, who formerly worked for Senator Marco Rubio when he was chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. You had a senior director who worked on technology issues for the National Security Council, and you had the head of legislative affairs for the National Security Council. So again, not people that are sort of big public names that you're hearing on cable news all day long. And I think it really speaks to this kind of lesson that the president felt that he learned out of his first administration of being managed up by these faceless bureaucrats.
Thank you both for your reporting. Appreciate you being here, getting up and in a little earlier. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Yes, in another tweet, Laura sent this out. I woke up this morning to learn that there are still people in around the West Wing who are leaking to the hostile left-wing media about President Trump's confidential and private meeting in the Oval Office. I want to reiterate how important it is that people who gain access to the White House or administration respect the privacy of their conversations with President Trump and his senior staff. Out of respect for President Trump and the privacy of the office, I'm going to decline on divulging any details about my Oval Office meeting with President Trump. It was an honor to meet with President Trump and present him with my research findings. I will continue working hard to support his agenda, and I will continue reiterating the importance of and the necessity of strong vetting for the sake of protecting the President of the United States of America and our country. So, when you see the mainstream media melting down about this lady, it is extremely important to look deep into it. Laura is doing a lot of work, and it seems to contradict with liberal media. They don't like that. Though sometimes I disagree with her, but what she did here, I'm not clear if she put up some information to the White House that led to the termination of these people. We don't yet know.
Long run, we're all dead. Short run matters too. Nobody knows what the impact of these tariffs is going to be on the economy.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy.
The consumer wins when the price is the lowest price. Tariffs raise prices, and they're a bad idea for the economy.
Yeah. Those are Republicans.
Yeah. It is a bad idea. I'm sorry. You know, and again, you know, if things were done in such a way where you could follow the logic, I would be all for it and say, oh, I really don't like this or I like that.
That's fascinating about this guy is that every Nobel Prize winners in economy are saying this is a bad idea. He knows nothing about the economy. He knows nothing about history because they tried this in 1930, and it made the Depression, the Great Depression, worse than ever. So he just decides, as a narcissistic disorder would, I know better than anybody. Forget about the economists who know better. Forget about people who know history. I alone can fix it. That's what he said one time.
And he also talks about reciprocal taxes. And I just ask, when you talk about how he's doing it, there are these herd and McDonald Islands that are in the Antarctic that are inhabited by penguins and seals.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what they did to us.
Vote.
Yes. I was like, come the midterms, I think these guys are going to be a little pissed off. But there are tariffs. I think the one reassuring thing was we haven't seen many Republicans break with Trump. And to see Senator Rand Paul actually push back, knowing that that resolution probably, it won't go through because the House won't take it up.
Yes, I didn't want to do this as a separate video because I don't actually watch these people. I just wanted to react on this clip, what is happening at the White House. The view is freaking out about Trump's decision to put up tariffs with less knowledge on this topic. There is one thing with these people. They just pick up information on social media with less knowledge and they do a segment like this. If you ask this lady to actually define what is a tariff, they can't. They can't define a tariff. I did a whole segment on this topic. If you've been following Kenya, you realize my first video I posted was about this. You can check.
And that, I think, was also a very big win. So
This is CNN. They are still in shock. Thank you guys for always being there, sharing all my videos. God bless you abundantly. And please remember to always share the videos because the channel is not getting recommendations. And the only thing we can solve it is by massively sharing the videos. If you get my notification, and always check if you are subscribed and your notification because these people are crazy. If you see clips after this, that is just for the YouTube algorithm. You might have been watching my video, seeing that you can end here, no problem.
About emergency management, and they don't care about free speech.
Dribble his genius. Fired as host of this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner. The Correspondents Association president, Eugene Daniels, said the decision was made to take the focus off the politics of division and concentrate on honoring outstanding journalists.
The Trump administration is not scoring any points in international diplomacy these days. Duh. Vance up.
It looks like the Trump administration isn't exactly getting the hero's welcome.
The fact that the Americans finally realized what the reality was, namely that if they had come here to Nuuk as planned tomorrow, they would have been met with riots.
This is a Fox News alert, a crushing blow for Democrats who had hoped against hope.
Brad Schimmel, that has included Elon Musk pouring tens of millions of dollars.
I think you saw a repudiation of the fact that...
I do think the Republican takeaways tonight are going to...
The margin right now, Randy Fine in the lead with 53.7% of the vote against.
My problem is more with these Democrats.
Said about him. And talks a lot about that. Although some people have.
Dinner. The whole dinner, the tour around the White House, it was...
Barr's a big, supporter of Trump's stance on the border.
Just a little bit on the 5. That's kind of how politics should be.
We came to dinner, me, Bill, Dana White, and at the end of the month, taking...
What was maybe a moment that stood out?
That is what appeared to me before we got the call to be a clear lead for Susan.